with me and let me show there are others just like you who feel the powers of earth, sea and sky, of dragon and fairy and shades of the night. Hear the call of our ancestors of blood and bone, of womb and tomb and standing stone. Lady, stir your...
Hello everyone and welcome back to Witches the Moon. You're seeing my smiling face because it is Thursday and I am your Thursday hostess, Natalie. This week's topic is crafting a spell. Now I'm going to approach this from what I hope is a little bit different perspective than everybody else who's posted this week. I have not had a chance to watch anyone's videos this week because it's been madly crazy at my work, so I apologize. But for me, spell work is maybe a little bit different than other people's perspectives. I consider spell work something I do almost on a daily, and it's not anything where I'm sitting down and I'm doing a full formal ritual and I have my altar out and I'm working. I do spell work like that, but for me it can be something as simple as when I am making my daughter's lunch for school in the morning. I've gotten into a habit of taking the mustard and making a sigil on her sandwich of the Lord and Lady, and I will incant something as I make her sandwich. I know this sounds ridiculous, but as I'm making the sigil on her sandwich with the mustard, I will say something like, "By Lord and by Lady, protected she, as I will it, so mote it be." And to me, that is casting a spell. I am infusing magic into that sandwich so that when she ingests it, she's taking that in, and that wish for her well-being and protection from the Lord and Lady is put out into the universe. So for me, spell work can be something very simple like that. Crafting a spell is something very, very different to me. Crafting a spell means I have some major working or something I'm doing for someone else that's going to require more thought than just general casting. So when I am crafting a spell, it is very, very different. Casting a spell, it may be something that doesn't necessarily go into this little fella here. Without breaking everything else. When I am crafting a spell, it will go into my Book of Shadows, which is filling up, as you can see. I'm really unhappy about the fact that there's two different colored papers in here, and I will eventually get around to redoing everything to where it's all on one color paper, because that just drives me nuts. But when I am crafting a spell, that is something I will put into my Book of Shadows. So crafting a spell requires a lot more work for me than just casting a spell, and I want to make that differentiation. When I am crafting a spell, I am putting a lot of thought or work into this. This is going to be something that I need to either have longevity, or that's going to be major powerful, or that is important to someone else, and I'm trying to figure out how to make it work with the energy that they give me. When I am crafting a spell, I will utilize a lot of different things. I may use incense of various types. This happens to be, by the way, I picked this up at the dollar store. It's Ganesh, but it's sandalwood. And this particular sandalwood is absolutely the spiciest, most wonderful sandalwood I have ever smelled. It's called Ganesh Everyday, because I know Ganesh has a lot of different ones, but this one's Ganesh Everyday. And this sandalwood, I picked this up at the dollar store for, it was like Dollar General for $1. And, you know, so I will consider incense. I might be using oils. I might be using crystals. I have all my crystals in here, in my bag. So crystals might be something that I'm utilizing in this spell. Candles, you know, and what type of candle, what color candle, what type of crystals. I will also consider using what type of herbs. And I got this wonderful box from Nadia Romanov. Lady Jane's Bewitchery. There's a slight plug for her. Sorry, this is the wrong place and time, but I love this box. I use it to keep all my little herbs in. I have herbs out the wazoo, and they're all over the place in about 6 different boxes, all kinds of jars, that kind of thing. But herbs may be something that I would utilize in crafting a spell. I may need to use my pestle. This is my non-baleful herbs pestle. I use it quite a bit, and I clean it all the time, although some of this stuff just does not want to come out at this point. I will also consider sometimes using other things such as different colored felts or materials, for which maybe I'll make a gree bag or something like that. And I have different colors for different correspondences, different things. When I am crafting a spell again, I will sit down and I will consider the intent. I usually meditate because, again, if I'm crafting a spell, this is something that's going to be a major working for me. So I will usually meditate on the topic, which will help me to come to the decision of what kinds of things. Is it going to be a fire spell, something where I'm going to utilize fire? Will I need the use of my cauldron, which has been used a lot, and I'm having a hard time cleaning that out too. Would it be something I would utilize a cauldron for? Is there going to be some sort of fire magic? Am I going to utilize just candles? Am I going to make a gree bag? Is it going to go in water? Am I going to put it in the earth? I will consider all of these things, and the decisions I make on those things depends a lot on what I'm doing with the spell. What is my intent? Then I will sit down and I will think of other things that need to go into the spell. Once I have crystals and herbs and incenses and oils and things that are going to help boost my focus on this spell and my visualization, then I will sit down and think of words that I want to say. What is the intent of this spell? How long do I need it to last? Is it going to be something that's going to encompass one person or more than one person? Is it something that's going to just cause a general shift in the energy for me? Am I trying to heal someone? Am I trying to heal myself? Is it something that, I will consider the intent of my spell. Then I will be writing all of these things down, not necessarily yet in my Book of Shadows, but it may be something I would write down and then later put into my Book of Shadows, because when I'm crafting a spell, that definitely goes in the Book of Shadows. I want to remember what I did, how effective was it. If it wasn't effective, maybe what could I have done to make it more effective? Was it that my visualization wasn't in place, what have you? But I will write very specific instructions, because I'm also thinking that if I pass my Book of Shadows on to someone in my family line or to a friend at some point, would they be able to replicate that, and would it have as much meaning for them? So crafting a spell for me is something that it takes a lot more thought and meditation and work and consideration than just casting. You can cast every day by just saying, Lord and Lady, bring to me wealth and happiness, so mote it be. I mean, that's casting a spell. I'm putting it out there to the universe. I'm speaking the words. I'm calling on deity, which you don't have to do in spell work, by the way, but I do. So, I like to enlist their help. I'll use the Fae. That would be something else I would consider when crafting a spell, is whose help do I want with this spell? Do I need to call on deity for that work? Is it something where I'm going to ask the Morrigan to lend her energy, or perhaps another deity like Isis or Caradwyn, or even a god like Cernunnos, or something like that? Is that something that's going to be useful to the purpose of my spell? Am I going to do that? If so, how am I going to present that to them? How am I going to ask for their help? I do a lot of work with the Fae, so I will ask them for their assistance. I don't say, hey, you need to come help me with this. I will ask them for their assistance, and I'll make an offering of that. So I need to consider all of those things when I am putting a spell together. What other kinds of materials would I need? Am I going to need a jar? Am I going to need a ball? Am I going to need a bottle of some sort? This one is one that I picked up from Michael's around Halloween, and I absolutely love this bottle. Right now, it's just sort of acting as a reminder that as above, so below, with the lovely little witch's hat that my daughter made for me, which fits perfectly on there. And Trina, if you're watching, I have one of these for you. I've been trying to get it to you for months. But that would be something. This is a spell that I'm currently working for someone. As you can tell, it's one that is not of a very pleasant nature. This friend of mine was having a lot of issues with a certain individual, and I am actually about to put this out there, but this was something that, I am working on. How does he always know? I don't know. One moment. brief interruption. Now I have to try to get my train of thought back, but while I'm working on getting my train of thought back, I thought I would take this opportunity to mention that I would like each of you watching this video to leave a comment below. Try to keep it minimal, 1 to maybe 2 words, describing something that you consistently use in your spell work. It can be something as simple as candles, it can be something as simple as herbs, incense, intent, anything like that, but I want just a 1-word phrase, and this is important because this will relate to the giveaway we will have towards the end of this season. Now, going back into my video about crafting a spell, as I was saying, crafting a spell to me is very different than casting a spell, so it takes a lot more time and effort. I will consider correspondences in terms of time. I will consider correspondences in terms of moon phase. I consider color correspondences. I will consider color correspondences when I'm considering candle use, which type of candle too. How long of a spell is this going to be? How long is it going to take to complete this spell? Is it going to be something that's going to take a week? Is it going to be something that should only take a few minutes? Is it something that should take maybe an hour or so? And I have found, it's been my experience, that spell work for me has been very effective regardless of the time that it takes. Now, I might have a reason that I'm taking longer with something. For example, I might do a week spell where I have a taper candle and I notch that candle, or I mark it and I'll burn it to a certain point, and then the next day I'll come in and do another part to the spell and I'll burn it down to another point, and so forth, and then what have you. And also, why am I using those materials? What is the purpose of these materials in the use of the spell? So for example, is it more just to lend an element of fire to the spell? Is it something where I'm going to take the wax that's been burnt down from that and I'm going to utilize that? Is it something where maybe I've got something attached to the candle, such as in the case of the spell that I was working, I had a picture of the offending person attached to the candle, and it was bound because I was doing a binding and return to sender spell that I was combining. I often like to combine things, and I'll play with spells. When I say play with spells, I will try different things. I'm not above experimentation in my spell work. If something doesn't work well for me the first time, then I might tweak it. And that's why I like to keep it in my Book of Shadows, because, you know, if something isn't quite working the way you intended it to, or doesn't have the longevity that it's supposed to have, then it's a good idea to have that so you can go back and take a look and say, well, what did I do, or what did I say, or what can I do differently that would make this more effective? And so crafting a spell for me is very, very different than just casting a spell, which can be done just as easily as looking up and saying, I wish that this would happen for me, or I wish that this would happen for this person. That can be that in an effect, as we know, as witches. Words have meaning, so anytime we put a thought or a word out there like that, that is casting to an extent. So I also want to consider the level of energy and the type of energy that's created. Sometimes I will need to do something to work my energy up into an effective mode. So if it's something that, if it's a spell that I'm doing in the context of like ritual, a full ritual where I have my full altar out and it's laid out and it's set up and I'm doing this and I'm doing that, then I may dance or do something to raise the energy. I might sing to raise the energy that I need in order to make that spell effective when I send it out. I have found that developing sigils is very useful for me, but to me, it's not something I can just sit down and there's a sigil. To me, it's something that takes a lot of crafting in and of itself. So if I'm going to do a sigil spell where maybe I have a candle and I'm going to inscribe the sigil on that candle, or I'm putting it on a piece of paper and I'm wrapping it around the candle, and then I'm going to use the candle wax melted around the paper to do something, then I will sit down and think about things that are related to what I'm wanting the sigil to be. I will think out in my mind exactly what I want that sigil to represent. I will write that out, and then I will craft a sigil based on the lettering as well as other things that may have something to do with that. So for example, if I was doing kind of a money spell, then I would want to, oh, that was the thing I forgot to pick up and bring over here. Ink. Color ink, especially in sigil work. Very, very, very important. The color of paper may be very important to my spell, and I will consider all of that as well. So for example, what I was just saying, when I'm creating a sigil, if it is a sigil to bring wealth and money and happiness, or not happiness, but wealth, money, growth, prosperity, something like that, I may write on green paper and I may use green ink when I actually create the sigil. And that's very important because all of that intent and all of that focus helps me to put that intent and energy into that spell. To me, the color green represents prosperity, not necessarily money, because money can be different colors in different places, but money is related to prosperity. So I think of growth and prosperity, much like plants in my garden. So to me, that's what that represents. So for me, blue is a very Pacific color. I use it a lot for healing, but I had a friend who did not like the color blue for healing work because she had someone very close to her that died of cancer, and to her they looked very blue right before they passed away. So to her, that's a sickly color. She uses green for healing work, and she uses blue for more baneful magic, because to her it's a baneful color. She likes black for love magic because to her black is a blending of all of the colors, and so she likes to have all of that energy there together. So it depends on you and your personal correspondences. It's your intent, your visualization, and what brings that intent and visualization to the table for you is really what should work. So as far as correspondences go, that's a little off topic, but you know, you have to figure out what do these things mean to you and your spell when you're crafting it. And so I'll consider all of those things, and I will use all of those things. Which herbs are good for what? How can I utilize that? When I'm putting those into like a gree-gree bag or something like that, I will state my purpose for using that particular herb or oil in a spell. So all of these things are very, very important to spell crafting. So crafting a spell, again, is, for myself, I can't emphasize that enough. It's very different than just casting a spell. Crafting a spell means that you're putting a lot of work and intent into this. It has a serious purpose, and it has something that you want it to last a long time, or you want it to be something that has a long-term holder effect, or has a strong or immediate effect. And it takes a lot of time and effort. It's not something that you can just, okay, I guess that's what I'm trying to drive home. Spell crafting takes effort. It takes work and visualization. But not every spell you cast is going to be one that's crafted per se. And to an extent it is, but not quite to the extent of something that is a major working. So that's my spiel on crafting a spell and what goes into it. I know I didn't give a lot of detail in exactly how I come up with a spell, but I don't know that this video is supposed to be detailed in that regard, because again, how you come up with all that's going to depend on your intent, your purpose, and what you're trying to work for. So I hope that this is kind of giving you guys a different perspective, unique from other people, or maybe perhaps not so much so, but I hope that you gain something from it. So remember to leave your comment in the drop box below. Oh, just a short comment, 1 to 2 words, 2 to 3 words, the minimal amount necessary to tell me something that you use in your spell work when you are crafting a spell consistently. Thank you so much for watching, and have a wonderful week. Thank you.